Have you ever kept a secret? A secret about something bad? You feel it growing, festering in your stomach, wishing for a time machine that could go back and undo what you did. But instead, you're left to hold on to the unbearable pressure of guilt. Now imagine your secret was taking a life. Could you take that secret to the grave? Or would you crack? Viewer discretion is advised for this educational documentary. I bring you true crime, disturbing stories and other things that you may later regret knowing with regular uploads every week. Thank you to all of my patrons. If your name is on screen right now, then you're a legend. Our love and respect goes out to all those that knew and loved Brittanee and all those affected by this dark case. Brittanee Drexel was born on October 7th, 1991. Her parents, John and Dawn, were teenagers, and unfortunately their relationship didn't last. In fact, they split before Brittanee was actually born. Dawn later ended up meeting and falling in love with Chad Drexel. He would go on to adopt and raise Brittanee as his own daughter. Chad and Dawn, in fact, got married shortly before Dawn gave birth to Brittanee. The family then went on to have another 2 children. This gave Brittanee a little brother and a little sister named Camden and Marissa. Growing up, Brittanee was a girl's girl. Her hair was always immaculate and her nails were freshly painted. She was always traditionally well presented. As well as this, she always excelled at sports. She played soccer and ran track. She was known for her blistering speed and the ability to outrun everyone she competed with. Brittanee could pretty much do it all. Sadly, in April 2009, shortly before her 18th birthday, Brittanee was having a hard time. Her parents were going through a divorce, and Brittanee was not taking it too well at all. Twice she had attempted to remove herself from the earth, but doctors and family saw this as a cry for help rather than her looking for a definitive way out. Brittanee wanted to be woken up in a situation that was better than the one she went to sleep in. As a teenager, she took solace in her friends, going out more and looking for ways to forget her life as it was. On the 22nd of April 2009, 17-year-old Brittanee asked her mother if she could go to Myrtle Beach with her boyfriend, John, and a few older girls that she knew. Understandably, her mother said no. She didn't know the people that Brittanee was asking to go with, and therefore she couldn't trust that they would look out for her. Brittanee was only 17 years old after all. This meant that for several hours they didn't speak, just exchanging a few angry words every now and then. In the end, Brittanee said, "Well, if you're not going to let me go down to Myrtle Beach, can I go to a friend's house over in Rochester and we'll both cool off being away from each other?" Her mother agreed, but not before confirming with Brittanee's friend's mom in Rochester. But as we know, teenagers can be sneaky. Dawn hadn't actually spoken to her friend's mother, but someone pretending to be her. With that, Brittanee headed to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. In the end, John, Brittanee's boyfriend, actually couldn't go due to work commitments, so it was purely a girls-only trip. But Brittanee was ready for this exciting experience. On April 25th, 2009, Brittanee travelled over 800 miles away from her home in Rochester, New York, to the South Carolina beach resort of Myrtle Beach. Shortly after arriving, she called her mom, telling her that she was at the beach. But Dawn understandably presumed she meant the beach in Rochester 20 minutes down the road, not the beach multiple hours down the road and several states away. But only a day into her trip, Brittanee started feeling kind of alienated from the friends that she went with. All of the other girls were a little bit older than Brittanee, and so they were heavily into the traditional spring break party scene. Her and her friends had walked to a neighbouring hotel a mile away to meet a group of friends that she had made on the trip. Once at the hotel, Brittanee only stayed for a few minutes. She had gotten into an argument with one of the girls that she had travelled with all over a pair of shorts that she had allegedly borrowed. Brittanee then left the hotel alone and headed back to the Bar Harbor Hotel at 1010 North Ocean Boulevard. This is the place where the group was staying. On the way, she sent a text message to her boyfriend John to tell him about what had just happened. But then, suddenly, Brittanee stopped replying. This was totally out of the blue. This young couple were normally in constant contact at all times. Normally 2 minutes didn't pass without them texting each other, so this was definitely odd. Boyfriend John quickly got worried as Brittanee wouldn't answer phone calls either. A few hours later, with no one able to get through to Brittanee, John called Mother Dawn to let her know what was really going on. Dawn quickly went from furious, as you can imagine, to absolutely frantic when she herself could not get through to her daughter. So in quite a genius moment, she had a friend of Brittanee's who lived in South Carolina drive over to the Myrtle Beach police station and file a police report on the family's behalf. The police, knowing a minor was involved in the incident and with Brittanee's history of issues, they quickly sprang into action, searching to try and find her. They started with the hotel that Brittanee was staying at, but they found nothing out of place, no signs of a struggle. All of her clothes were still in the suitcase in her room. Brittanee's phone and purse weren't in the room, so they assumed that she never actually made it back from the Blue Water Resort. They then traced her route from her friend's hotel using CCTV. Brittanee left the hotel just 10 minutes after she arrived, and after that, she just vanished. No more footage could be found along the route, so investigators say that they began to theorize that maybe she'd gotten into a car. This then begs the question, did she get in willingly, or was she forced? Had Brittanee Drexel been kidnapped? Investigators started talking to Brittanee's friends and family. They focused on those who'd gone down to Myrtle Beach for spring break. There was one friend from New York who grabbed their attention in particular. His name was Peter Brozowitz. He shared a similar group of friends in Rochester, and Brittanee and Peter had known each other for around 5 years. They hadn't actually planned on meeting up in Myrtle Beach, but had bumped into one another at a nightclub, and then they'd arranged to meet up the next day. Peter, along with 4 of his friends, were the people that Brittanee was visiting at the Blue Water Hotel, and they were the last people to have seen Brittanee before she disappeared. And yet, he and his friends had suddenly packed up and left Myrtle Beach, leaving behind their clothing and security deposit. This obviously sounded suspicious, but Peter claimed that all they'd left behind was a few bathing suits, and that the lack of security deposit wasn't actually a choice. The hotel had told them they weren't getting it back anyway. Spring break can be a messy thing. He said that their vacation was over, so they simply went home. Peter and his friends cooperated with the police fully throughout the investigation. Everyone was eventually cleared as suspects. They then looked into Brittanee's phone records. They found that her phone had pinged travelling along Route 17 at around 9:15 p.m. This was near the boundary between Georgetown County and Charleston County. It then stopped abruptly in a swampy area of the Santee River. Unable to obtain evidence about where Brittanee could have disappeared, the case eventually went cold. On June 8, 2016, 6 years after Brittanee disappeared, detectives finally got a promising lead. An informant who was currently serving a 25-year sentence for manslaughter approached the FBI with information that he said would help with the Brittanee Drexel case. Inmate turned informant Taquan Brown claimed to have witnessed the murder of Brittanee Drexel just 2 days after she went missing. He claimed that on April the 25th, 27th, 2009, he had gone to McClellanville, South Carolina to a stash house around 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach. This was in order to pay a local H dealer. This dealer was called Sean Taylor. Sean had a 16-year-old son, Timothy Deshaun Taylor, who Taquan saw violating a woman in the house, a woman that matched Brittanee's description. And then, when Brittanee attempted to escape a few days later, the men shot and killed her, wrapping her body up and dumping it into an alligator-infested marsh located not far from where her phone was turned off. The FBI turned their attention to Timothy Deshaun Taylor. Timothy had committed an armed robbery at McDonald's in 2011 and had successfully completed an 18-month probationary term. Timothy told the police that he had never even met Taquan before. He totally denied any involvement in the crime. This investigation took months, but detectives eventually concluded that Taquan's account was nothing more than a completely false confession. However, at around the same time, they started to focus their investigation on another suspect, a man named Raymond Moody. Raymond Moody was a convicted child offender. He had been released from prison in 2004 after serving a 21-year sentence. Since then, he had been suspected in a string of offences, but he had never formally been charged. Detectives discovered that in April of 2009, Moody had been in the Myrtle Beach area with his girlfriend, Angel Vows. What's more, this wasn't the first time that the police had heard his name in connection with this case.
Do you know anything about the missing teenager?
No, I do not.
Can you tell us where you were back in April of '09?
Goodbye. You know what? I'm going to call the police in a second. You better split.
Can you just tell us where you were in April of
I got
09?
nothing to say to you. You understand that?
Back in 2011, Angel had sat down with investigators. She revealed that she was suspicious of her boyfriend having been involved in Brittanee's disappearance. But despite her suspicions, Angel stayed with Moody. And investigators then spent the following years chasing down new leads, while slowly building a case against Raymond Moody, who was now a 76-year-old man. In 2021, an FBI task force was put together to investigate the case. Angel, now a nurse at the MUSC Medical Center, agreed to meet with senior investigator Hank Harrison at the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office. This meeting was alongside 2 other FBI special agents and an intelligence analyst.
Did you have any involvement in picking up Brittanee Drexel?
Hell no. Mostly did not. Because if you're trying to accuse him of anything, then I'm not going to be involved in it. Because I say he didn't, okay? I say he did not.
I'm not accusing him.
I'm not. Yeah, you are. That's what that was. I'm straightforward too.
Can we just talk?
No, I'm straightforward too. I don't think he did. And you're not going to involve him in it.
What do you do with him?
Yes, it does.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Hey, hold on 1 second.
No, I'm not.
Let's give us
I said no.
one piece of
I said
information.
no means no. I gotta go. I'm back.
Okay, air conditioner's working because my office is hot. You know what? So,
It works in here. We'll kill it.
yeah.
Thanks for coming back.
Hold on.
You need anything?
I just need a minute. Wait a minute.
During the interview, Angel was asked about the events of April 25th, 2009. Investigators pushed her to reveal where she and Raymond had been on that night. But during the hours-long interview, Angel became distressed and walked out. She was upset at the accusations being thrown around. After being talked down, Angel returned and began to show her hand. She said, "I would never hurt anybody. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where he was that night." Angel said that she didn't know where Raymond was on that night, but she believed in his innocence. And with the agent's reassurance, Angel agreed to help to piece this case together. During the interview, she said how she remembers Raymond returning on April 26, 2009, with fresh scratches on his face. She said she wasn't sure where he had gotten them from, and had questioned him at the time if maybe she had caused them during some drunken fight. Angel then told investigators about how on April 25th, she had gotten off work early and met up with Moody to swap cars before going their separate ways. Detectives revealed that they had evidence to suggest that Angel's phone and credit card were placed in the Ocean Boulevard, North Myrtle Beach area around the time that Brittanee disappeared. But Angel continued to deny being with Moody. She instead suggested that it was possible that her phone and card could have been in her truck which Moody was driving at that time. Angel also told investigators how around 1 a.m. Raymond had left their home before returning around a half an hour later. After the interview was over, Angel returned home, and FBI surveillance noticed suspicious activity in their home over the next few days. The home that Angel and Raymond shared. Raymond was seen going in and out of the house, going through the car as if he was looking for something. And with Moody's unpredictable behaviour, a warrant was used to search the residence the next day. Several electronic devices were seized, including 3 phones, 2 tablets, a disposable camera, and multiple assorted storage devices. Days later, on Wednesday, May the 4th, 2022, Raymond Moody met with the investigators. His story differed completely from the account Angel had given them just days earlier. After 13 years, knowing evidence against him was piling up, the pressure had mounted to become unbearable. Raymond Moody was ready to give a full confession.
Around the strip. Just people watching and stuff, you know. So that's all we were doing. We were going down the strip and smoking pot. You know, who the hell is it? You know how it is down there.
I work the boulevard, yeah.
Yeah. And Brittany was walking on the sidewalk, and the traffic's really slow. You know, it gets right here, so congested. And she looked over. And I looked at her, I was smoking pot. She started laughing. And I don't remember the entire conversation. Sit down long, but she said, "That smells pretty good." I said, "Yeah, that's some good pot. Would you like some?" I said, "Yeah." So we kind of chatted a little bit as I'm driving. Angel's sitting right there, but she didn't say a damn word, you know. I was thinking to myself, she probably don't care me talking to her, you know. But just a little jealous sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's all harmless.
Yeah.
We're just having a good time. And anyway, I was surprised. She just hopped right in and said, "Hey, you want to party with us?" I said, "Yeah." So she got in.
He said, Angel's not really saying anything, more smoking the pot, and I said, "Hey, you want to party a little bit with us? We're gonna get some you know?" She was like, "Sure." So we started driving, just driving around, smoking, talking, and let's start going right into Georgetown. Went right to a spot where we used to camp out down by the river, and we went down there. And when I was by myself with her, and she left for a while because here's now these things got out of hand. And I panicked, and she panicked, and I strangled her, knowing Angel would be back any minute. Moody told investigators how he had hidden her body in a boat landing. When Angel returned, she questioned Moody about where the 17-year-old had gone. Moody told her that she'd been picked up by friends. And then later that night, unable to sleep, Moody returned to their campsite and buried her. After this confession, Moody led investigators to the site where he claimed he buried Brittanee all those years before. He took investigators through the scene, pointing out the spots where he had assaulted her and then ended her life. life. A search warrant for the property was issued, and investigators spent the next 2 days excavating the site. 5 days later, Angel appeared at the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office with her lawyer. There she gave a proper statement which could not be used against her in a court of law. Here, Angel changed her version of events that night to match what Moody had already told investigators. Both accounts detailed how Moody had returned to the scene to bury Brittanee, and then a second search of the site was conducted, and soon they found what they were looking for. 4 feet beneath the dirt lay a nose ring, contact lenses, long hair, and a set of human remains. The remains were sent for forensic dental and DNA identification, and 2 days later, the Drexel family received the devastating news. The body was Brittanee. On May the 11th, police charged 62-year-old Raymond Moody with murder, kidnapping, and criminal conduct in the first degree. On October the 19th, 2022, Raymond Moody, who had waived his rights to a trial, pled guilty to all of the charges.
I don't have the words to express how horrible I feel. And I've felt ever since that day very, very sorry.
Before reading Moody's sentence, Judge Pharaoh Cothran Jr. said, "We all pay the price for decisions we make in life. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people give up their long-time happiness for immediate pleasure. And you gave up a lot of people's long-term happiness for your immediate pleasure." He was sentenced to life in prison with an additional 2 consecutive terms of 30 years. Raymond Moody will never be released. Do you think the punishment fits the crime here? What do you think can be done to avoid something like this happening again in the future? Please do let me know down in the comments. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.